you have to turn your spear according to how the fish is, and then you just spear it right on. You push it right onto your spear then, and you swing it around, and it comes back into the boat, and you have a box back here, and we just pull it onto the box to pull the fish off. Then we come back around, and we're looking again for another walleye.
And in those treaties, those Indian leaders negotiated for what they referred to as treaty reserved rights that they always had. And that was the right to hunt, to fish, and to gather in those ceded territories, those millions of acres of land that were given up to the United States. And so those treaty reserved rights were violated for generations, until finally there were two tribal members from the LCO tribe, the Tribble brothers, decided to give it a test case.
We were brought up with that idea, that we couldn't go off the reservation. But yet when we started researching these treaties, 3 or 4 different ones, 1837, 1842, 1854, something like that. All them treaties said that we retained the right to do this, not on reservations, but on ceded territory. So that was a key for us. So one of them days after class, when we were standing in the hallway talking to our instructor, just me, Mike, and another guy named John Courte, we said, hey, what does this mean anyway? Does it mean we can hunt on all the ceded territory that's northern half of Wisconsin and into Minnesota and Michigan? Yeah, that's what he said. And I said, oh yeah, what do we got to do? He said, well, you guys have to have a test case. And so we said, test case, and what does that mean? He said, it means you have to go out and get arrested. So we looked at each other, get arrested, huh? Okay.
So they announced that they were going to fish outside of the reservation boundaries, and invited state game wardens to come in and make an arrest.
So it's easier for us to pull a shack from out there, I don't know, maybe 300-400 yards across the imaginary boundary line. And so that's what we did.
I didn't even have a chance to get my spear in the water when I heard the footsteps coming. And someone started pulling on the door, trying to rip the door open, and I had to say, wait a minute, I'll open up. And so when I opened up, there was a state enforcement officer, game wardens, 2 of them.
It wasn't until LCO won that decision, which was upheld by the Supreme Court because they decided not to hear it, right, the U.S. Supreme Court. And so you get 1983, that decision being issued, public backlash right away. So non-Native people in Wisconsin are upset and outraged.
I remember being on this lake here, and we're spearing that shoreline across the way. And we would have non-members in their boats riding back and forth here, creating waves and making it rough for us. They're trying to make it rough for us to harvest fish.
And so you'd launch your boat under a hail of stones, insults, threats, and so on. Get out on the water, and you're spearing, maybe about 15 feet offshore, 15, 20 feet offshore, and you hear shots in the dark, and you don't know if these drunken protesters are trying to scare you or whether they're trying to kill you. It was a pretty scary time.
My
grandma would always say people would shout really, really racist things, really, really hurtful things. Things that had to have been thought about before they said them, you know, things that somebody really had to think about, what would hurt this person? And they would come up with those racial slurs and say those things to our Native people at the boat landings. You know, she said that sometimes on occasions people would bring weapons, guns, and people get busted with pipe bombs. It's been, you know, reported that that's happened. You know, and it's a really kind of it's a hard thing to talk about, even as a person that wasn't there firsthand, because nowadays I go out and I take my nephews and my brothers and, you know, my relatives spearfishing, you know, every spring, and, you know, we do that to reconnect and rekindle the relationship that we have with the spirits that watch over those places. You know, we do that because we need to feed our families and we need to feed our communities. When we're out there harvesting, we're not harvesting just for ourselves. You know, a lot of people, you know, they always say, you know, oh, you kind of harvest quite a few deer, you know, you harvest quite a few fish, but every time there's a funeral in the community, every time there's some kind of a celebration or some kind of ceremonies or doings, people show up and they ask for those things that we need in our ceremonies, and so I always make sure that our people are fed in that way.
We're very careful about what we take, and that's just part of our philosophy or who we are, and how we know that we're stewards of the environment in a lot of ways, and we give respect to those spirits, the Creator that allows us to have these resources.
Well, I got a lot of guys saying thanks, you know, and thanks for taking the courage to do that.
We didn't really realize what this was going to do later on, like it has snowballed into what it has. You know, we just thought we were going to have a right to go fishing and trapping and hunting off the boundaries of the reservation, and the DNR state game wardens couldn't enforce it. That's all we thought was, you know, going to happen. But it turned out to be a lot more. It turned out more than just hunting, fishing, trapping, and gathering. There's more to it than that. It opened up some economic opportunities because we won the case. It reaffirmed our sovereignty is what it actually really did.